Hello, it's Denise from Women Beyond a Certain Age. I'm very excited about our guest today because we've tried to schedule her 3 times, and 3 times Cindy and I flaked out. How's that for a professional endorsement? But today's the day, and our guest is Sally Ekus of the Ekus Group. Now, hello, Sally.
Hi, Denise. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Well, I'm grateful you still answered my email. Someone else might have taken our total. You know what, Sally? It's like everything in life. Cindy and I make plans, and then life interferes with it, or one thing after another. I don't need to tell you, you
Yeah.
juggle a baby and a marriage and your career.
Actually, a toddler, an ex, and a business. So, yes,
Oh,
you're right.
okay. Did not know about the ex. That's all right.
Totally fine. Never married. Yeah.
Honey, again, life so goes differently, doesn't it, than we
Yes.
ever.
Yes, it does. That is the one thing we can bank on is life does not go according to plan,
Well,
which
let me
I love.
tell.
I love that.
I
I'm
know we have no choice. You know what? If you try to hold on too tight, it won't. It will not help. That's I've
That's
learned.
true.
I had to learn that as a young woman. Now, let me tell you something. Let me tell our listeners. I've known Sally for a really long time because Sally's mother is Lisa Ekus. And Lisa Ekus has been a legend in cookbooks and publishing for, I don't know, I've known Lisa for 25 or 30 years. So, and she was doing that before me.
Yeah. The agency is going to be 41 years young in April.
That's, that is a testament to good business, honestly. How many businesses last 41 years? They don't. We know that. Now, in case people don't know, because I know we get young people to listen to us. Don't
Yeah.
ask me why, Sally. Don't ask me why. The Lisa Ekus Group, and now it's called the Ekus Group, is a full-service culinary agency specializing in literary and talent representation. Sally represents a wide range of culinary health, wellness, and lifestyle talent, from the first-time cookbook author to seasoned chefs, professional food writers, bloggers, the internet, and YouTube personalities.
Woo woo.
Whoa, whoa. Well, let me tell you something. From concept to contract, she has brokered over 300 book deals. Now, Sally, people, it's amazing, impressive, but people don't realize, not everyone, unless you've been in publishing, just how many changes have been in publishing. So, the Ekus Group, 41 years, but how long have you been doing this now? You
Well,
yourself?
formally, I've been doing this for 14 years, but I like to say that I've been informally training for this my whole life because Lisa had me, licking envelopes and stamping press kits before I could even really like walk. So, I've been in it since the good old days, they say.
Yes, you did grow up in it. That's exactly. But 14 years, even, Sally, that's amazing.
Thank
Okay,
you.
that's amazing. Now, and if people, and so what I wanted Sally to talk about to people today, because of women beyond a certain age,
Hmm.
so many people, Sally, want to write a cookbook, okay, or want to write their memoir. And as they age, if they've retired or they're only working part-time, or they're a grandmother who'd like to write down their recipes for their kids, whatever kind of, the idea of the book in their mind is, I think there's a couple of issues, and that's the questions I ask you. One, most people don't know how hard it is, okay, and how many people work on a book, okay, and that's why. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to ask you questions that they would ask, and they do ask me. People ask me in emails. So here's the question in that long intro. If people imagine that they want to do this, and
Hmm.
if they were just asking you over a cup of coffee, if you and I didn't know each other,
Hmm.
your mother, the Ekus Group, sold 5 of my 9 books, and
Hmm.
I sold the rest of them myself, pretty much. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
actually, one was redone because of my friend Martha Hopkins, which has been wonderful. But in my day and age, if you didn't have an agent, you couldn't get a cookbook published. Okay. So if people is the question I'm trying to ask you, are people, would you say to them, what's your object with this book before they went to all the trouble? What would you say to someone who hasn't read the book?
Yeah, a couple things. Just to go back to the very beginning
Please.
about, all the people who say, I want to write a book, go for it. Write your book. It's different if they say, I want to be a published author, particularly in the traditional publishing space. If you are somebody who's lived a life that you have a lot to share and you want to write your memoir, sure, write it down, start writing and see how that flows. If you know you want to publish a book or you want to publish a collection of recipes, that's a completely different ball of wax. And you don't need to have an agent. It's not a requirement. And in fact, I think there are a lot of scenarios in which working with an agent may not make sense. But generally speaking, in the traditional cookbook space or the traditional memoir space, it's easier to get published if you have an agent. And the agent's job is to know the marketplace and know the players and open those doors, beyond the sort of often thought component of like negotiating a contract and those elements. So when people say, I want to write a book, the very first thing I ask them is why, and then we kind of go from there.
Perfect. That's exactly perfect answer.
Thank
now,
you. 14 years nail it on the first question.
You are 100%. Now, the other thing, then what people say to me is, how can I get an agent?
Mm.
Now, so I want you to answer this. What entices you? Let's just talk about, it's a great cookbook. Someone sends you a proposal. What makes you, and also if people don't know, Sally teaches how to write a cookbook, has a workshop. It's on your website, isn't it, Sally? And if not, we'll put that up when we broadcast.
Thanks.
But Sally has a little concise class that people, if they're really serious, should take, because I know that because there's so much information there, Sally, that people need to be able to absorb.
It's like the same questions I got over and over again. I put it together in a course so people can learn the answers.
Brilliant. No, that's brilliant. Now, what entices you as an agent if you look at someone's proposal?
Yeah. So just to back up too, like if people don't know where to start, you start with a book proposal, and that's essentially the business plan for your book. Why do you want to write it? Who are you? What's the concept? What are the recipes? What's the voice, the tone, all that good stuff. And honestly, this just happened to me this past week. I get great proposals. They are, by all intents and purposes, like really well done. They've got all the components of a proposal. The idea is good, but it just doesn't like speak to me as a person, and that's okay. Like, I think it's really important to know that, like, alongside knowing why you want to write a book or why you might want to work with an agent, it's finding the right agent, the right publisher, the right concept. And so what I look for, in addition to the sort of like nuts and bolts of the proposal components, voice, platform, solid recipes, I just look to be like captivated in some way, because my inbox is exploding. My DMs are lighting up, everything, my toddler is calling for me. So if I get sucked into reading something for like 10 straight minutes, I'm interested. Then I know, okay, I'm down to do this.
Okay. So that is called the toddler test.
I love it. Yeah.
I think that
wasn't in my proposal guidelines, actually, but now I'll add it.
That's really good. Because I feel that way. I have to tell you, and this is what's funny, Sally, and all the different things. People will contact me, and because sometimes I've emailed you and said this person wants to talk to you, and you've been very gracious, because you never know.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to take chances, and you have to look at people. Different thing. This was a young woman that I was working with, but she was put together with me because it's a long story, but the bottom line is she sent me a proposal. We don't work on proposals. I never worked on proposals, Lisa, but I could at least say to them, I used to say, go to the Lisa Ekus Group website and look at the proposal guidelines. Do you know what I mean? And see if you've hit those numbers. And, are you answering some of these questions correctly, or at least get the form cleaned up enough that you can show people. And I was out for dinner, and this woman had been a personal chef. Her attorney was business partner, not a business partner, but was working with my husband. So that when she heard I was going to be there, she came because she had read my catering book from 10,000.
Because you're famous and she wants to meet you. Of course, I would go too. Come on.
But here was the bottom line. She's so together, so charming, big celebrity clients, sent me the proposal. And Sally, there's no way to say this. It was the worst writing I ever met. I know bad writing. Okay. I know bad writing because I've been a bad writer. But I'm talking, instead of talking about the food or getting the job with one of the most famous people in the world, she kept talking about her black Mercedes and the valet and stuff. And every time, and so finally, then she asked me what I thought. I said, I think you need to get a writing coach. And I think you'll need, because she was, of course, had been turned down by everybody because her celebrity clients kept saying, I'll show it to my agent. Their agent like went,
right.
It was just, so it was, but, and by the way, after I told her honestly what I thought, she never spoke to me again, just so you know. So I have nothing but admiration for you because you're more delicate than I am with your words. But it's hard for people to know. It's hard for people. I mean, how do people become better food writers in your estimation? How does their voice become something that you want to listen or read? How do you think?
I think it takes work. I mean, some people have that natural ability, but I think a lot of people, even with the natural, sort of pizzazz that someone might have innately, they work at it. They work at writing. They value doing something right, not rushed. They invest in practicing and testing recipes and getting their material workshopped and showing it to colleagues to get feedback before it goes to an agent or to an editor. Diane Jacob is a fantastic resource with her classes. I have my class. There's the Everything Cookbooks podcast. Like there are so many resources now available where I recommend, if people are really serious about this as their career, invest in yourself, do the research, consume all of the free content, then invest in some of the course material that's available through Diane or through our agency or through Kristen Donnelly. There are other people out there that have tools available to you to learn how to do this. That's not for everyone, but I think that if somebody is sort of recognizes that there's room to grow in their own talent or skill set, or they just like to learn, it's not hard to find the resources available that are out there.
I totally agree. And Diane Jacob has been at this for a long time.
Yeah.
And that one of the things you said, I think that's the most important thing, Sally, is
the right, not rushed.
The right not to rush. And you really, it's just like you don't learn to cook everything in a month. Do you know what I mean? And if you've ever done art, you realize there's all sorts of things you learn from each piece of art that you create. I think the biggest, to me, the biggest problem with cookbooks is people don't realize how much energy and time and the resources.
It's so much. And that's why I always encourage people to start with the proposal, because if you want to write a book, then the proposal is a great barometer for figuring out, should you do it? Start by taking your bio from your website and copy and pasting it into a Word document. Then you've got your proposal started. Start by pulling all of the press that you've gathered over the years. Put that in the proposal. If the proposal is the blinking cursor every morning to you that just gives you a headache, then writing a book is never going to happen, or it's not going to happen right now. If it's the thing you wake up so jazzed to address, okay, cool. Now we've got something to work with.
Well said. I think what else people don't understand is advances. And I know, so people read in the newspaper that I just, it was the time when we had done some consulting for her, but it was Java de Laurentiis was at the top of her game on television. Do you know what I mean? And she got almost $1 million advance. Well, because they knew that she had a TV show or 750,000. And I worked with Suzanne Summers when she got $1 million advance.
Yeah.
But people don't often understand Meaning if you should get so far is to get a proposal together and get an agent, and the agent gets someone to look into the book. One, there's no guarantee, even with a good proposal, that your book will sell.
True, but I will say the better the proposal, the better the advance.
Good. And good thing. Why is it that advances, some people get $10,000 and some people get $1 million?
Oh, well, if I could answer that perfectly, I would have cracked a code that everyone is eager to hear. But I will say this. There's like these waves of what warrants higher or lower advances over at least my 14 years in the industry and the historical knowledge I have through Lisa and our agency. And there's a couple different factors, you know, the dreaded or coveted or debatable word of platform is certainly a component of this. What is somebody's platform? And, you know, right now there's a huge emphasis on social media followers and numbers and growing platform on TikTok. But at the end of the day, what platform really is your ability to connect with your core audience in some sort of large scale way so that the publisher knows you're bringing some hardcore internal sales to the table. That's it. It can be on social, it can be in a newsletter, it can be in brand partnerships, it can be in speaking engagements, it can be with a byline, and ideally it's with all of those things and more.
Yeah.
Then we're talking about, okay, what are the deliverables here? You know, if it's a book of 50 cocktail recipes, that's going to cost a different amount of money to produce than a book of 150 you know, slow Sunday recipes based in the most expensive ingredients from the corners of France. So that's a different type of book to produce. All of those elements go into, you know, factoring an advance and a P&L and what a publisher is going to offer. But at the end of the day, celebrities are going to get higher advances, and, you know, tried and true experts are going to have to claw tooth and nail for every penny. However, I always go back to the better the proposal, the better the deal. And we've done deals of all different sizes. And it's a matter of like identifying what is the ultimate goal of this book, of this author, and what is the book as a mechanism for other components of this author's brand and platform that we can leverage.
Brilliant. No, that's perfect. It's hard for people to understand that because they're only thinking of their little book. You know what I mean?
Which is fair for
which
first-time
is fair.
authors. Yeah.
You know, and one of the things, what we have done, Cindy and I styled a lot of people's. The self-publishing started to become bigger.
Oh, yeah.
In the last decade.
That was very smart.
You know, yeah. We styled a whole lot of those books.
Yeah.
And it was fun, and the author was so excited, and it was great work for us. I mean, I'm grateful. But in reality, and I would always tell them, you know, they'd done their P&L, and they had usually been rejected by an agent. Do you know what I mean? So they were doing their own thing. But one of the things, Sally, in my heart was, half the time as I drove away, and I knew what they had spent, and they weren't going to go into debt. Do you know what I mean? They would, but I thought those people will only sell 500 books. Yeah. And then a year later, the authors would say to me, I only sold 500 books. Yeah. And it was hard to explain that after your mother and her bridge club buys their copy, you know what I mean? That to have national recognition, you're talking about like a platform, unless you have a YouTube, or now you have 4 million followers on Insta, you know, on TikTok or on Instagram, it's hard to get the public's attention.
Right. Well, and even then, we now have enough information to see those books come out and to know, okay, you know, 1 to 3% of those followers convert to sales in pre-orders. So that's why the demand for such a high number is there, because it's such a small conversion to actual book sales. So, you know, we're looking for people who have inroads to support sales of their book, bottom line, whether it's self-publishing or traditional publishing. And if somebody wants to self-publish, I still think they should do a proposal because they're creating the business plan of how they're going to promote and sell their book. And if they think it's only going to be, if it's going to sell itself, all right, we've got some more work to do. We got a little self-reflection exercise.
Now, you just said it. A well-written proposal is the roadmap.
Totally.
Totally. And without it, even as an author, and I mean, I've done this a few times, and I've written outlines for other authors. Do you know what I mean? Celebrity authors would say, well, what should be in the book?
Right.
So then writing basically the business plan of the chapters, because even then, Sally, and in my own books, you get lost. There's so much going on. I had to go back to my own outline sometimes and think, okay, what did I want to, what happens now? To go back to.
When we do like early publicity and marketing planning for our clients or for others that we consult with, I always ask first, like, well, let's go look at the proposal. What did you say you were going to do 2 years ago? And you have a lot of new connections. You've grown your platform in the past 2 years, but let's start with like, what was the initial plan? And then start those inroads, get that going, and then also bring in everything that's happened since writing the manuscript and making the deal and all of that good stuff.
That's exactly right. The P&L you've mentioned twice, and what it cost the publisher, what it cost them to produce this book. And I know when I still get books from people that are sending me advance copies, but mostly I do it on television. Like when I look at a television production or a new cookbook, I know how much it cost. Do you know what I mean? It's frightening.
I think you probably know better than most, honestly, because you have another side to looking at the cost of on set and ingredients and teams. I mean, it's way beyond what most people have an insider scoop on.
So when you were talking about marketing and you were saying having different streams, I certainly know this. How about a YouTube cookbook in this day and age, Sally? So here's somebody that's already getting some traction. People know them. So then instead of the way we used to do it, the cookbook is now an outgrowth of what they're already doing on YouTube.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think in every scenario, a book is a big, beautiful business card.
Yes.
Whether it's YouTube or Instagram or, a column in a newspaper, like your book is the new shiny thing that you can offer to your local media or to your friends or to get that first teaching gig that you want or that speaking assignment, the keynote that you've always wanted.
That's right.
It's the new thing. It's the calling card.
Well said. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but tell me 2 or 3 of your favorite. We're going to talk more about marketing and different things, but what are 2 or 3 of your favorite cookbooks?
Of all time?
Of your whole life.
Oh my gosh. Well, the first one I always think of is Molly Katzen's Pretend Soup. Because, that's just my life. It was, and it is now. And actually, this is a bizarre little tidbit, but my daughter, I have a copy of a very old cookbook called Blue Moon Soup that my daughter loves. That I read her the recipe titles. Yay! Like when I ask her at night, what book do you want me to read? She says like the Moon Soup book, and so I'll just read her like head notes.
That's adorable.
Really on brand for her right now. But a newer book that I'm incredibly proud that we worked on is a book that came out this past fall from Frankie Gon. It's called First Generation, and it's about his experience being a Taiwanese American growing up in Ohio. And the book is a book to make you cry and to make you cook. I mean, it's got sort of all of those elements, and it's really beautiful, visually stunning. Frankie has an incredible eye for design. He's worked as a designer. And so he was very involved with his publisher, who's 10 Speed, in the making of that book as well, which is just kind of like a good example of like each of the components that I look for right now. Cause it's got the voice, it's got the food, and it's got the look and feel.
That book, so it's a story about growing up Taiwanese. So that's a story, because I know other things that when you were saying, in writing proposals. You can track cookbook trends. I mean, you can see, it's just like TV shows. And, one of the things that, this is my example when you're talking about, and Frankie's book sounds fabulous. Right now, we are totally in a get back to your roots sort of movement.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And the reason it cracks me up and doesn't, but I mean, it's a long time coming. I first read Jessica Harris's High on the Hog in like 1994. Yeah. And I was working with Lifetime. I worked with NBC Weekly, and I kept bringing her book to television producers, and I kept saying, this is a TV series.
Yep.
This is a TV series. People said, what are you talking about? Nobody cares about that. So when it finally showed up on Netflix in 2020, I thought to myself, well, I told these people this like 27 years ago.
Did you get a producer credit there?
I got nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shut up, big mouth. But I remember it as clear as a bell. And there are books that you remember in your life that help you. But I think this latest, and I don't mean trend in any way saying an negative thing. I mean in a real positive. I think writing about family recipes or how you assimilated or the history of food is the most interesting thing there is.
Right.
I mean,
luckily we all have a story to tell when it comes to food, and the net has been cast wider for a variety of stories and family history now.
And what do you think? I mean, have you been surprised by something that became a bestseller? Is a book that you've looked at and thought, are you kidding me? This is a bestseller?
Often, yes. But
okay.
as we know, or maybe some listeners may not know, the bestseller status is sort of funneled through certain types of pre-order campaigns and sales channels. And here's a little fun fact. We represented a book that on the first initial on sale week was the highest selling cookbook among all cookbooks. However, it didn't technically make the list because of, stores that report and all of that. And so it was a really sort of helpful career reminder and moment for me and for the author to know that, bottom line on her sales report and on the royalty statement, she had the highest selling cookbook of the week, which was great. We love that. We want that.
Right.
And frankly, I'll take that over, formally hitting a list that has that cachet and notoriety. That would be lovely. But also, it's important for people to take that list with a grain of salt. One thing that, getting named on a list can do is help with that like word of mouth momentum and recognition. And so there's certainly a benefit from landing on the list that way. But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of books. I'm like, wait, what is this book? I've never even heard of this before.
Having Sally with celebrity cookbooks that we wrote the recipes most of the time. Yeah. We styled and wrote the recipes. We weren't writing the pages. We were writing the recipes and the headers. And I would say out of the 50 of those books, half of them landed on the New York Times bestsellers list.
Yep.
Now, it helped with sales. Of course, the author wanted it. So on every single book they ever did, it would then say New York Times bestseller list.
Yep.
When I would get the finished book and then it would sell and it would be on the New York Times, half the time I thought to myself, who did they pay? Okay. I mean, where was the door for this? Because some of the books were brilliant and wonderful, and some of them are just fair, not even fair. Some of them were not very good.
Well, and so the same way people say to me all the time, I want to write a book. And I ask why. They say, I want to be a bestseller. And I can assume that they want like, the creds and the cash, which obviously that's great. Both of those are wonderful. But there's also so much that happens in between. I want to write a book and I want to be a bestseller that to what I'm really looking for in authors, for at least for our agency, are people that are like looking to learn about the industry and sort of the how and the what behind the scenes. And so like if they explain like why they want that and how they're going to help it get there, that's the sweet spot, because it is a very widespread effort among every single person that touches your book along the way to get on that list.
Well said. You know what else? it's the journey is half of the fun. I know most people
Totally.
think that, but because now since I'm 101, I can tell you
You're just beyond a certain age, right?
living at a certain age, the journey, the thrill was when you sell that first book, or it didn't matter if you made any money. You know what I mean? And
I mean, when our authors get their first rejection from publishers, I send them a congratulations note and I say, congratulations, you're on your way to becoming a published author. What, like, you've gotten rejected. This is great.
some of, you know what, Sally, it's so funny you should say that. In the rejection letters I got, which were not so much for books in the beginning, it was just trying to get in, well, trying to get an article in a magazine in those days. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Well, I kept most of them and they're in a folder. I kept them because they got better. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And when I got one from 2 or 3 of the biggest editors in New York, and one of them said to me, this is the most entertaining article I've ever read. I won't publish it, but I want to thank you for sending it to me.
I love that.
He likes me. I mean,
I love that.
I kept it. And now, only because when I go back, I still have some of those folders with work like that. When I can see my own growth and my own potential and what I accomplished, I'm really proud of myself. Do you know what I mean? It's a wonderful sense of accomplishment.
Well, Lisa always said you need 2 yeses, one from an agent, one from a publisher, but you really only need that one yes from a publisher when you're out on submission. And you'd like to have more. It's great to have an auction or a bidding war, but at the end of the day, rejection is a completely, frankly, important part of this process. If every single person that I sent a proposal to wanted the proposal, that would be very exciting, but it would mean that there was like 12 different visions for the book, which kind of means we could go in so many different directions. And I want, there's a balance between sort of flexing and adapting to each publisher's publishing brand and style and really knowing what your book is meant to be.
You just brought up, which is such a good thing, about publishers' brands. People may not always know that certain publishers, I used to say this to people. I'd say, you want to write a book. Okay, what's your book look like in your head, or what's it about? But I said, you should go to a bookstore and see if there's a book like that. But you also want to see who's publishing books similar to yours, because the publisher's brand is the publisher's brand.
Totally. So early on, you had said, like, how do you find an agent? And I'm not even sure I directly answered that question, which is one place to find them is to go pick out the cookbooks you love, go in the back, look and see in the acknowledgments who might be the agent that they think. But at the same time, look at those books. Who are those publishers? Who are those editors? Pick out your favorite books on your own bookshelf and say, oh my gosh, it looks like, if I'm looking at the spine of the book and at the bottom, there's the imprint, which is like the little logo that names the sort of sub company of the publishing brand or the publishing company. Look and see, are most of your books 10-speed books? Are most of your books artisan books or workman books or chronicle books? Or are they independently published books? So that kind of can give you a sense of reverse engineering to who to figure out who are some of your favorite publishers out there.
That's brilliant. No, that's exactly right. And I used to read, I still do. I read the acknowledgments because I want to know
absolutely.
who you have to, or who their stylist was, or who their editor was. I mean, you get a lot of information. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think, Sally, in today's day and age, why do your dear friend, our dear friend, Sandra Gutierrez, just wrote this wonderful article in the WAPO about classic cookbooks, older cookbooks. And I have all those cookbooks. Okay. Because they taught me to cook.
Absolutely. I have those too.
I have them all. Now, I have new cookbooks too, but you know what, Sally, and some beautiful new cookbooks, but when I moved to Ventura and closed down my studio, I gave away about 2,500 cookbooks. I gave them to the local library. So I told friends to take them, but I had so many because I'd been a judge for ICP and James Beard. Right. Do you know what I mean? It's like I know how many books you and your mother have had. I mean, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. So, but what was interesting to me is what I kept. some beautiful new cookbooks that like, well, now it's not new, but Bobby Flay's original Bold Flavors cookbook had some absolutely stunning recipes in it. But the cookbooks that I loved were my old Doubleday cookbook, my Joy of Cooking. I do have like 6 issues of Joy of Cooking because I look for them in cookbook stores. But why do some cookbooks hold up and some cookbooks don't?
Well, I think
even with all these trends.
Right. We've gotten hyper specialized. Like, you know, even our agency's list, there's a lot of single subject, a lot of unique and special categories. And I love that. And I represent it really well. But I also think that there's this appreciation for like the compendium and the reference and just like all the information you might need in between 2 covers. Like, well, I don't want 7 books. I want 1 book, you know?
Yeah.
Publishers though want you to have 7 books. So
they do.
It's, you know, the books that Sandra was writing about are like the tried and true classics because they're one-stop shopping and the publishers are keeping them refreshed, right? I mean, they're adding relevant information, new technique, new instruction, new voice, and also like you get it all between 2 covers.
Yes. Well said. You have to tell me the name right now of Frankie's book that you loved. Because I'm going to buy it after.
It's called First Generation.
Fabulous. Okay. It sounds wonderful. What else? I just think if we were talking about from blogs to books, some have been incredibly successful, some not.
Right.
Is it because we just don't really know what's going to hit with what people are going to react to?
Again, if I could answer it perfectly, I would have cracked a code, but I think it's a combination. Like some of the blog to books hit well because they are kind of generalist in a good way, like kind of that one-stop shopping again, but within the brand of that blogger. So like, you know and love a certain person, you trust their voice, and then they're packaging their best recipes for you from breakfast, lunch, dinner, sides, apps, and salads.
Yeah.
Cool. Now I have the book that I need and I don't need the others. But I actually, like when I joined the industry, it was right on the sort of beginning of that blog to book craze. So I got to see a bunch of publishers like rush to sign up a bunch of bloggers, and some of those books hit well and some of them missed the mark. And I think it was a combination of a lot of different factors. Like bloggers don't necessarily know how to support and market and sell a book, and they're learning how to do that. And some publishers explain those expectations and requirements more than others. Some of those bloggers essentially evolved into like huge entrepreneurs because they recognize that their blog is essentially like a media company. And I think those are the bloggers that had those breakout books. And so it really just, there's no one single formula or recipe for like how to make it hit super successfully. But I think it comes down to, you know, a solid compendium of information, a trusted voice, an engaged community, and somebody at the helm who recognizes I have a thing here that I love and I want to package and sell in various ways really successfully. And a book is going to be one component of that larger machine. And I mean that like in the best sense of the way, you know.
Honey, you said it really well. And I have to tell you, well, you said it so well to me. The blogs that hit, and I know a lot of them, the same thing as they came out. And it's just like writing your first book, and it's a component of the whole brand or platform that you established. But I know this, those people worked really, really hard.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And you said entrepreneurial. What people may not know, and we haven't said, is you write the book. Okay, you write a proposal and you get an agent, and then the agent helps you sell the book. And then the book is out there in the market. And what people don't always tell people is, even though the publisher's hoping that, and there's been some discussion, I know you always did, and your mother always did, but now you have to sell the book.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Forever.
Right. Nobody's going to love that book as much as you. It is your responsibility. The publisher's going to help you. And if it does well, they're going to help you for a longer period of time. But it's your book. It's not anybody else's. And it's not just going to magically find its audience. And your readers aren't just going to buy it because you ask them to one time. It needs to be part of your message and your editorial calendar and what you plan for. And, you treat it like a business. And yes, it takes, right. Bottom line, if we like strip everything else away that we've said this entire time, if you want to succeed, you need to be willing to work really, really freaking hard.
No, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom, that really is the bottom line. And, Sally, when I get letters from sweet people, or they go, oh, that I want this, or I want that, or stuff, they said, Denise, how did you do it? I said, I worked really hard.
Wait, do you get handwritten letters?
I get emails, I get notes, I get handwritten, I get notes. It's very sweet from people that have bought my books.
I love that. Yeah.
Or people that when I spoke at at conferences,
right,
do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And they're always very nice. They say, you don't know me. And, it's always very nice. But inside the answers, which is why I answered this once, it can't blog away. Someone raised their hand after I'd spoken. They said, what do you think? When you got book deals and stuff, what do you credit that to? I said, I worked like a motherfucker.
Right. Right.
And of course, Twitter had just started. So somebody in the crowd tweeted it out, Sally.
Love a good motherfucker retweet.
And that tweet, and then Mandy, who worked for me at that time, texted me about a half an hour later and said, did you say motherfucker? I said, I did. And she said, oh, God. So I learned, and I quit Twitter soon after that, because people kept taking, it wasn't out of context. They took the verbatim and tweeted it. That's not something I wanted repeated. Anyway, I think it's very hard work. I think the whole process of writing a book and success, the success for it is very hard work. But I think that you really have to we're going back to the first question, why?
Right. Right. It's not just, I want to write a book. Why? And are you willing to work for it? I just got a query. Somebody's pitching me. This was a couple weeks ago for representation. And in their query letter, they said, I heard you on a podcast and you talked about putting people through a rigorous proposal process, because that's sort of the on-ramp for then working on a book, which is a lot of work. And in their query to me, they said, I'm ready to be put through this like rigorous process. And that stood out to me, because they're saying, I recognize I only know what I know as a first-time author, consuming what I can. And here's sort of my best foot forward. If you see something here that you're interested in, will you work with me on it? And I really appreciated that approach. It's not for everyone. And I can't work that hard on every single proposal at the same exact time. I need to have certain clients that need more or less handholding at different times. But I really appreciated that being called out, because they were saying, hey, I'm ready to work hard. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm down for that.
Yeah, that would totally stand out to me. Would totally stand out to me in any situation. Do you know what I mean? That's right. Really.
Oh yeah. Way beyond writing a book. Like, I just want to work with people who want to do meaningful work and put in their all, whether it's at home, in at work, in life, in how we interact with one another. Like, what's the point if you're not willing to like show up in all the ways, in the best way possible?
That, honey, I had times in my life, and one of the reasons I stopped, and not stopped, I mean, one or two afterwards, but I really didn't want to write celebrity cookbooks anymore, was unless the celebrity was really sincere. Do you know what I mean? Because unfortunately, sometimes after you got to know them, you really didn't like them anymore. Mm-hmm. And that was problematic. And it's the same way with all clients, isn't it? Right. Nothing new there. Now, what didn't I ask you? What didn't we cover?
We've covered a lot.
We talked about proposals. We talked about learning your craft. We talked about enticing an agent. We talked about the publishers, and this is something, Sally, it's really important. And again, back to whether you're perusing Amazon, your independent bookstores, there are brands out there that publishers establish for themselves. And I think you have to really be aware of that, and play to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, it's not just about getting an agent or a book deal. It's about finding the right agent, the right publishing partner, and, finding the right fit along the way. And, at first glance, you might look at the cookbook shelf and think, okay, these all look and feel the same. But if you really want to be on that shelf, take a closer look. What do you see? What's hardcover? What's paperback? Who's called out? Who's helping make those books? What voices are there? What's the tone? Who are the publishers? There's a lot of information on your bookshelf.
Yeah. I want you to tell us the name of the course that you teach. And I know it's on the Lisa Group, Ekus. It's so hard for me not to say Lisa,
You can say Lisa. Absolutely. Me too.
Lisa has been so important in my life and my career. And it's hard for me not to say Lisa.
That's okay. We can still talk about her. She definitely wants that.
The Ekus Group. Tell us about the course a little bit, and then so much information.
Yeah, the course is aptly named How to Write a Cookbook, and I also moderate a Facebook group that anyone listening is welcome to join. It's called How to Be a Cookbook Author, and it's a place for sharing resources and to connect and ask questions and celebrate. It's also where I post agency news and offerings, and then like industry news. And then the course is, 40 plus years of the same questions over and over again, distilled down to 2 hours. So you can take it at your own pace, and you get my face and voice along the way. And if you decide not to do the homework, which is totally fair as a first go around, you can finish it in less than like 2 hours. It's what does an agent do? Why do you need one? It walks you through 3 real book deals that I've negotiated. It talks briefly about the differences between self-publishing and traditional publishing, because we get that question a lot. And, there's a lot of nuances to how to answer that. I walk through the different types, like archetypes of cookbooks. I walk through what an imprint is, the difference between publicity and marketing, collaborations. It's a little bit of everything in what it takes to write a cookbook these days.
Extraordinary. That's extraordinary.
Thank you. I spent a tremendous amount of my time in life working on it. So I'm very proud of the resource. I mean, like really, we'd been running these in-person workshops or virtual workshops, which we still do. And the course is like, just if you really want to dive in, if you're really ready, go for it, and there are some other great resources out there too that I think complement it really well.
Well, you inspire me, Sally.
Thank you. You inspire me. I'm so happy and honored to spend this time with you.
Oh, honey, I have to tell you, I'm so grateful to the Ekus Group. Very grateful. And I'm so glad that you've done so well.
Thank you.
Because, it's just, I'm so proud of you that you've done so well. I know one night we had dinner at ICP. You were fairly new doing it. I can't believe that's been 14 years, long before your toddler, long before.
Oh, yeah.
So, my God, it's impressive. Well, honey, I cannot thank you enough for your time. When Cindy posts this and we broadcast it, she puts all your information on it, so people, I'm sure, will reach out to you, and I hope that there's something good that comes from that. I know this. My feeling is, Sally, you have to do it. You may not. I mean, when I first started my career, I took jobs that I didn't make any money on. Do you know what I mean? But I learned so much.
Oh yeah. Totally.
And I loved it so much, it didn't matter. Okay.
Absolutely.
But I knew this, every book that I wrote, now I look back and I think, oh, I'm so glad, because that led me to something else. And some money, and some of them I still get royalties on. I'm not going to get rich, but it's a wonderful satisfaction. It really is.
Well, we're so grateful. I mean, I think back to our initial roster of agenting clients before my time, but when Lisa was starting that arm of the company, and you're among that cohort. I mean, we wouldn't be where we are without our incredible authors and titles, and you're among those. So
well, it was all damn fun.
It was, and still is. Still
It
is.
still is. And I am, just so people know, again, on the Facebook group, I'm a member of that group, of Sally's group, because it's found, I love it. Sally, and it makes me, sometimes I can answer intelligently, and sometimes I love seeing the questions that come up. And I think, well, that's a whole new part of publishing I didn't know about yet, or I wasn't thinking that that was important. Do you know what I mean?
What I love about the group is that we do have perspectives from a lot of different chapters in publishing, and that really illustrates my answer to everything, which is it totally depends. Like,
Yep.
everything in publishing is a unique scenario. There's a general guideline of answers, which is like in the course and online and available, on podcasts. But then there's also like the nuances. And so the group is a place where you can see a little window into the nuances of publishing.
And it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Well, honey, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I can't thank you enough. If anyone wants to reach out to us, Cindy and I, it's womenbeyond@icloud.com. We love the comments. We love the comments. Sometimes people don't want to put it on the website. You know how that is. You're in the group. They have to do it. They want to do it privately, and that's fine too. And all complaints, of course, are handled by Cindy. And we don't take complaints here. Too old for that. Thank you, Miss Sally. And again, Sally of the Ekus Group. And honey, she's just an extraordinary agent in this difficult field right now. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Denise and Cindy.
You're welcome. I love your baby, and I love when you post about your baby. And take care, and I hope to see you soon.
Me too.
Okay, sweetheart. Thank you. And thank you, Miss Cindy, for everything you do, because this would not happen if Miss Cindy didn't know how to be the technical everything. Thanks, Sally. Bye. Wasn't that a lot of information, Cindy?